This episode of True Crimes of Kuwait is closer to home, literally. I was informed of it years ago from my neighbor. The victim was his grandfather. His grandfather was found strangled and dead in his bedroom. In researching for the podcast, I always try to find out crimes that took a lot of investigation, forensic evidence, interviews, collecting data to find out the criminal. Not just somebody got killed, he ran away with the knife and they found him and they brought him to justice. One of those cases that depended heavily on the observation of the crime scene was the case of the murder of my friend's grandfather. They found the grandfather with his qatra, what we call qatra, the headband people here put on Kuwait, the red one, not the white one, wrapped around him, and he was strangled. They didn't find anything, just a watch, a Casio small watch, and the first investigation officer recorded all that. But then another investigation officer came to the crime scene and he observed the crime scene meticulously. He found out that the qatra was wrapped around his mouth. That indicated for him the grandfather was yelling and the murderer tried to stop him from yelling by wrapping it around his mouth and then strangling him. And he found out traces of pink sand on the bed. Also, he did not find anything that was stolen from the scene, so he observed that it was not for robbery. The old man's wallet was still on him, and in the room there was some watches and money that was on the table. It was still there, so it was not a robbery. But there was a safe in the room, and they saw that the murderer tried to open it unsuccessfully. He looked at the Casio watch, and it was of a kind that usually poor people or workers, because it was cheap, they usually wear it, not people like in the society a Kuwaiti would wear that kind of watch, or somebody that had money. The investigating officer asked the family members if the grandfather had any people that want him dead, any grudges, did anybody threaten him. They all said no, he's very peaceful, he doesn't go out much. Then the investigating officer asked if you have any workers that worked for you or worked for him. Relying on that watch they found in the crime scene, they told him yes, there is a worker that ran away, and the grandfather reported him missing since 9 months ago. It turned out that his passport was in the safe in the grandfather's room. They, based on that information, they took the picture of that worker, they sent it to the airport, they sent it to all exit ports in Kuwait to prevent him from leaving the country and find him and question him. At the same footing, the investigation officer asked, where did you get that worker from? And they told him that they got him from a office, which is an office responsible for bringing workers that you'd like. You go to that office and pick the worker and they'll bring him for you. It was on a Saturday. They called that office owner and he came and opened the office for them, and he showed them where he got this worker from, and they asked him, does he have any relative that works in Kuwait? And yes, there was a relative that worked in Kuwait. They brought that worker and questioned him, and he said that yes, he knows him, he's my relative, and he always go to an area called Al-Murgab and Wafra. Wafra is an area in the south that has a lot of farms. On that information, they formed groups that went in disguise, dressed as Bengali workers in Murgab and Wafra to ask about this person. From those investigations, they found out that he lived in a tent in a store that sells animal feed. Right away, they went to where that tent was and they entered it, hoping that they would find him, but he was not found. But the same investigation officer found out that the sand in that area was almost pink color. The people in the store informed them that he actually left the country just yesterday. A taxi from an area called Fahahil came and picked him up and took him to the airport. They went and asked all the airports, all the ports, land ports, about this person leaving Kuwait, and they all said that no, that name and that picture was not registered or reported leaving the country. On that information, they went to Fahahil area. They asked around until they actually found the taxi. The taxi driver said, yes, I did leave from here. Somebody called me and I did leave from Fahahil and I went to the Wafra area and I picked that person and took him to the airport. They checked the airplanes leaving Kuwait, and there was an airplane that left to Dhaka, Bangladesh at that day. But the investigation officer did not want that killer to slip from the hands of justice. He went and got all the passengers that was on that plane. 260 passengers. He removed the children, he removed the women. He has 135 males that left on that airplane. He took those names and called all the sponsors that worked for those people, the Kuwaiti sponsors. One by one he called them and he asked them, if anybody of your workers left yesterday. One of the Kuwaiti sponsors said, no, this guy works for me and he's here, he's still working for me, he did not leave. Right away they told him to come and bring that worker. That worker came, and after questioning him, he admitted that he sold his passport to that person, to that killer person, which he then changed the picture on the passport, he forged it, and he left using that passport. The picture that they had in the airport was old, his face was different, so they didn't recognize him, and the name was not the same name on the passport. Still, they did not give up. After a lot of calls and getting a lot of requests and approval from higher ups from the police, the investigation officer got an approval to send informants to Bangladesh, to where that they think that person is. And for sure, after some weeks, they did find that person in a city called Nawakh Ali in Bangladesh. They took pictures of him for evidence that he was really there. After that, through diplomatic discussions and requests, Kuwait asked for that person to be apprehended and caught, and the police in Bangladesh cooperated, and they did catch that person. And from the evidence after trial, they found that he really was there. He was really the person that tried to go in to get his passport from the grandfather. And when the grandfather saw him trying to open the safe, he started yelling. He then took the qitra, the red qitra, wrapped it around his mouth to keep him quiet so they will not find him out, and then proceeded to strangle him. The judgment was passed on that person to be executed for that crime.